We should be live.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Today is what the day today, Matt? Yeah, chicken.
Today is Tuesday.
Tuesday, right? So how many more days is a new year? Who knows?
1, 2, 3, 4.
4 more days, new year? Yes. Today is December 28th, right? So a few more years, you will go to the new year 2022, right?
Yes.
So, and everybody have a good Christmas time, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we're ready for the new year. So today we will show you about how to draw the 2022 Happy New Year. You can decorate the word whatever way you want, okay? Because the new year you can use colorful, different color. And right now, 2022 and Happy New Year. So you can do whatever way you do. You can pick the color you like, okay? And you can do that like up here or here, and you can even add some more fireworks here. Because with the new year, you will see a lot of fireworks, right?
I have a question. Does China do New Year's?
What you say?
Does China do it also?
Not right now. Chinese New Year is think about February. It's a little bit different with us, right?
So it's a difference.
Yeah, it's a little bit. It will be on February, I believe so. Okay.
Wow.
So right now we just do the Happy New Year for the 2022. So you any color you like. So first you can write a Happy New Year and you write 2022 here. You write here. So first of all 2022. So we just draw the number 2 first, right? You know how to draw number 2, right? Okay, so just number 2 first. Okay. And because you can draw a big, not only one line, you can draw a double line like this. So you have a 2. Okay. You want to try that? Okay. So 2, 0. And we can have a little bit on here, just like the donut, right? Okay. Two, 0, 2. One more 2 here. Okay, one more line for that.
Yeah. Yeah, a new year.
Okay, one more there. You done already, Shannon? So we have 2022. It's just the basic line, right? And you can use the other color to decorate inside the number. Make it more interesting, right? Okay. So we can use the other different color. Okay. More. Just draw the other line. Just right here. One line right here. Okay. So just connect this to here. Just do simple, easy, whatever you think easy for you. And after that, you can color different color in here. You can draw a little bit more, whatever pattern you like in there. So that's the 2022. And now we will draw the Happy New Year. Who can spell Happy New Year for me, please? Who can spell Happy New Year? You, Katie?
Yeah.
Okay, can you spell Happy New Year? Happy New Year?
I know how.
Okay, wait for Katie first. Okay, Katie, can you spell Happy New Year, Katie?
H.
H
A.
A P P Y, right? Okay, so thank you, Katie. And Tegan, can you spell New Year?
HAPPYNEW.
Here.
And year.
YEAR.
Very good, Tegan. Thank you. Very good. Okay, so now we have a 2022 already. That's the number, right? So right now we will write down Happy New Year. Okay? And just like I said, New Year, colorful, whatever color you like. Just like the firework, because on New Year you will see a lot of firework, right? And firework have a lot of different colors. So let's see. Happy New Year. So 8, right? Okay. Right. Okay, so A. B. Two P, right? And 1. So we have a happy. And then New Year. So new and E. W. And year. Okay, so we just draw the line like that, and if you want, you can use the different color. Let's see, just use the green one, huh? Green color. So if you choose the other color, you just like the double line here.
So fancy. Beautiful. You're very
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
okay, so simple like that. So who finished that and want to show your friend?
He did it on his
Mark?
own.
Okay, Mark only the first one. He's good. Okay, come here, Mark.
Is it this?
Okay, so let's see.
Pretty.
Okay, Mark,
Okay.
show your friend. Okay, so this is Mark. Draw Happy New Year here, everyone. Good job, Mark. Thank you.
Here.
Okay, Henry. Okay, that's nice shirt. Okay, who like Mark Mattia? Mark Mattia.
Oh no. You beat me good. Oh no. So Lucy, what?
Go this way, Mark. This way. Okay, here. Mark Mattia, 2022. Happy New Year. Very good, Mark. Thank you. Good job. Thank you. And who else?
Almost.
Who else?
Done.
Almost done. Katie, you done? Okay, Katie. Let's see, Katie here. Wow, look at that. Very good, Katie. Good job. Okay. Okay, who next? Shannon? Are you done, Shannon? You want to show your friend?
You want to show yours, Shannon? Show me right
Okay,
here.
you be right
Travis
there.
wants to show his when he's all done.
Yeah, 2022, huh, Shannon?
This side.
Okay, right here, yeah, come here.
Do they get you?
Good job, Shannon. Let's see, Shannon. Oh, wow, she do the colorful. I like it. Good job, Shannon. 2022. Good job, Shannon. Thank you. Okay, who next? Almost there, huh, Travis? Okay, Travis. Timothy, you have anything to show your friend? Oh, Travis. Let's see, Travis. Wow, look at Travis. Good job. Very good, Travis. Wow, good job. Okay, team. Okay, let's see, team. Let's see, team. Show your friend, team. Wow, that's good, team. Thank you. So everybody did a good job. Okay, so Happy New Year, everyone, and see you next year. Okay. Okay, bye, everyone. Have a
Hey,
good
you
night.
keep that one.
Huh? Yes, I keep that one. Thank you.
See, look what I did.
Thank you.
Am I a good artist?
No, you keep that, hey, bro. That's fine. No, you keep that one.
You look nice.
Having finished Stuart Little and having finished Charlotte's Web, in which at the end, Wilbur was a little sad because his friend Charlotte went away, but she left thousands of little friends behind, and they, at least 2 or 3 of them stayed every season with him, so he had friends that were just as nice as Charlotte forever. So that's really nice. So today I have a new book to start for you. It's called The Trumpet of the Swan, and there's a swan here on the cover, and he's holding a trumpet underneath his wing, which is not something you usually see. And the back of the book is going to tell us a little bit about what the book's about. So it says, like the rest of his family, Lewis is a trumpeter swan. But unlike his 4 brothers and sisters, Lewis cannot trumpet joyfully. In fact, he can't even make a sound. And since he can't trumpet his love, the beautiful swan Serena pays absolutely no attention to him. Lewis tries to think of everything to win Serena's affection, but he even goes to school to learn to read and write, but that didn't seem to work either. Then his father steals him a real brass trumpet. Is a musical instrument the key to winning Lewis's love? Well, we are going to have to find out by reading it. So we shall begin at chapter 1 of The Trumpet of the Swan, and chapter 1 is called Sam. And maybe that's this boy. There's a boy walking over by a pond. It's hard to see in the class, I'm sorry.
Looks dark.
It's the book is the drawings are just like pencil drawings, so they're going to be black and white.
It sounds pretty. Looks great.
Yeah. Walking back to his camp through the swamp, Sam wondered whether to tell his father what he had seen. I know one thing, he said to himself. I'm going back to that little pond again tomorrow, and I'd like to go alone. If I tell my father what I saw today, he will want to go with me. I'm not sure that's a very good idea. Sam was 11. His last name was Beaver, Sam Beaver. He was strong for his age and had black hair and dark eyes like an Indian. Sam walked like an Indian too, putting one foot straight in front of the other and making very little noise. The swamp through which he was traveling was a wild place. There was no trail, and it was boggy underfoot, which made walking difficult. So boggy is kind of like there's a lot of water in the soil, so when you step on it, kind of squishes. So yeah, that would make it difficult to walk through. Yeah. Every 4 or 5 minutes, Sam took his compass out of his pocket and checked his course to make sure he was headed in a westerly direction. Do you guys know what a compass is?
The compass?
Compass, it means to go travel.
It's like a small instrument, maybe like a little bigger than your watch, and then it's got a needle on it that's magnetized. So When you hold it up, it'll point what direction. It'll tell you if you're heading north or
south
south or east or west. And sometimes it's kind of hard to tell that unless, in the morning you can tell that the sun is going to rise in the east, in the afternoon it's going to go down in the west. But at any time between like 11 and 2 o'clock, it's really hard to tell by the sun what direction you're going.
Or the midnight, right?
Yeah, so he's going to head in the western direction according to his compass. And he's in Canada. It says Canada is a big place and much of it is wilderness. To get lost in the woods and swamps of Western Canada could be a serious matter. You might not find your way back again, right?
Yeah.
As he trudged on, the boy's mind was full of the wonder of what he had seen. Not many people in the world have seen the nest of a trumpeter swan. Sam had found one on the lonely pond on this day in spring. He had seen 2 great white birds with their long white necks and black bills. You all know what a swan looks like, right? So
Yeah.
they're very beautiful, though, aren't they?
Yeah.
And they're pretty big. As a matter of fact, he said, let's see, nothing he had ever seen before in his life had made him feel quite the way he felt on that wild little pond in the presence of those 2 enormous swans. They're quite big. I want to say they might probably stand like this, and then their head and neck go. So they're pretty big.
Are they real?
Yes, there are really swans.
What city are they in?
Oh, they might be anywhere. They're in California, yes, but they're in. If you went to a place with a pond, they're even here. There you might see a swan.
Are they in Canada also?
Yep, they're all over North America. It says they were so much bigger than any bird he had ever seen before, and the nest was big too. A mound of sticks and grasses. The female was sitting on eggs. The male glided slowly back and forth, guarding her. When Sam reached his camp, he was tired and hungry, and he found his father frying a couple of fish for lunch. Where have you been? Asked Mr. Beaver. Exploring, said Sam. I walked over to a pond about 1.5 miles from here. It's the only one we see from the air as we're coming in. Well, so they must have flown in on a plane. It isn't much of a place, nowhere near as big as this lake we're on. Well, did you see anything over there? Asked his father. Well, said Sam, it's a swampy pond with a lot of reeds and cattails. I don't think it would be any good for fishing. And it's hard to get to. You have to cross a swamp. Or did you see anything? Said Mr. Beaver again. I saw a muskrat, said Sam, and a few red-winged blackbirds. Mr. Beaver looked up from the wood stove where the fish were sizzling in a pan. Sam, he said, I know you like to go exploring, but don't forget, these woods and marshes are not like the country around home in Montana. And Montana is the state that's right below Canada.
It almost sounds like Hannah Montana almost.
Hannah Montana. If you ever go over to that pond again, be careful you don't get lost. I don't like you crossing swamps. They're treacherous. You could step into a soggy place and get bogged down. And there wouldn't be anybody with you to pull you out. Oh, I'll be careful, said Sam. He knew perfectly well he would be going back to that pond where the swans were.
That sounds funny.
And he had no intention of getting lost in the woods. He felt relieved that he had not told his father about seeing the swans. But he felt weird about it, too. Sam was not a sly, he was a kind of sneaky boy. But he was odd in one respect. He liked to keep things to himself. And he liked being alone, particularly when he was in the woods. He enjoyed the life on his father's cattle ranch in the sweet grass country in Montana. He loved his mother. He loved Duke, his cow pony. He loved riding the range. He loved watching the guests who came to board at the Beavers' ranch every summer. But the thing he enjoyed most in life was these camping trips in Canada with his father. Mrs. Beaver didn't care for the woods, so she never went along. It was usually just Sam and Mr. Beaver. They would motor the boat and cross into Canada. There, Mr. Beaver would hire a bush pilot, so that's like a small plane. that to fly them to the lake where his camp was. And for a few days of fishing and loafing and exploring. Mr. Beaver did most of the fishing and loafing. Sam did the exploring. And then the pilot would return and take them out. His name was Shorty. They would hear the sound of his motor. Oh no, you need to dance. And his name was Shorty, sorry. They would hear the sound of his motor and run out and wave and watch him glide down to the dock. These were the pleasantest days of Sam's life. These days in the woods, far, far from everyone. No automobiles, no roads, no people, no noise, no school, no homework, no problems, except the problem of getting lost. And of course, the problem of what to be when he grew up. Every boy has that problem. So here's his little camp with his dad. They've got a tent.
That's cool.
And the dad has gone out and gone fishing and was picking up the fish. And the boy is out exploring a lot. So that's what he likes. Yes, but we're reading the book for everyone to hear right now.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. After supper that evening, Sam and it's probably fish again, by the way. Sam and his father sat for a while on the porch. Sam was reading a bird book. Pop, said Sam, do you think we'll be coming back to camp again about a month from now? I mean, in about 35 days or something like that? Guess so, said Mr. Beaver. I certainly hope so, but why 35 days? What's so special about 35 days? Oh, nothing, said Sam. I just thought it might be very nice around here in 35 days. Okay. That's the craziest thing I ever heard of, said Mr. Beaver. It's nice here all the time. Sam went indoors. He knew a lot about birds, and he knew it would take a swan about 35 days to hatch her eggs. He hoped he would be at the pond to see the young ones when they came out of the eggs. That would be fun, right? Oh, Sam kept a diary or a journal like that, a day book about his life. It was just a cheap notebook that always was by his bed, and every night before he turned in, he would write in the book. That's a really good idea for everyone to do. He wrote about things he had done, things he had seen, and thoughts he had had. Sometimes he drew a picture. He always ended by asking himself a question so he would have something to think about while falling asleep. On the day he found the swan's nest, this is what Sam wrote in his diary. I saw a pair of trumpeter swans today on a small pond east of camp. The female has a nest with eggs in it. I saw 3, but I'm going to put 4 in the picture. I think she was laying another one. This is the greatest discovery I've ever made in my entire life. I did not tell Pop. My bird book says baby swans are called cygnets. I am going back tomorrow to visit the great swans again. I heard a fox bark today. Why does a fox bark? Have you ever seen a fox? They do kind of look like a dog. I never thought about them barking, but I guess they do. Why does he bark? Is it because he is mad or worried or hungry? Or because he is sending a message to another fox? Why does a fox bark? So that was the question that he left for himself to think about while he was falling asleep. Sam closed his notebook, undressed, crawled into his bunk, and lay there with his eyes closed, wondering why a fox barks. In a few minutes, he was asleep. So chapter 2 is about the pond, and there's a picture here. The pond is at the bottom, and you can see the trees in the background, and actually you can see the 2 swans have taken off flying there, I believe. They do fly, swans, but I think they like to swim around in the water a lot, and just like when you go to the pond and you see ducks, they like stick their heads down in there and find some fish or something to eat. The pond Sam had discovered on that spring morning was seldom visited by any human being. Yes, sir. All winter, snow had covered the ice, and the pond lay cold and still under its white blanket. Most of the time, there wasn't a sound to be heard. The frog was asleep. The chipmunk was asleep. Occasionally a jay, what's a blue jay bird, would cry out, and sometimes at night the fox would bark, a high rasping bark. Oh. Winter seemed to last forever. In Canada, it probably seems like that. It's very cold up there. But one day, a change came over the woods and the pond. Warm air, soft and kind, blew through the trees. The ice, which had softened during the night, began to melt. Patches of open water appeared. All the creatures that lived in the pond and in the woods were glad to feel the warmth. They heard and felt the breath of spring, and they stirred with new life and hope. There was a good new smell in the air, a smell of earth waking after its long sleep. The frog, buried in the mud at the bottom of the pond, knew that spring was here. The chickadee, I love the chickadee, such a cute bird. He knew and was delighted. Almost everything delights a chickadee, though, so. The vixen, dozing in her den, knew she would soon have kits. A vixen is the female fox, and kits are baby foxes. Every creature knew that a better, easier time was at hand. But we don't have really hard winters here, so where there's a hard winter and there's snow and lots of ice and stuff.
No, big.
Yeah, but when it's getting warmer, that's a big deal. So they're really happy to see that. They're tired of it being cold, right?
Yeah.
Trees were putting out green buds, and the buds were swelling. Birds began arriving from the south because a lot of birds fly south where it's warmer for the winter. A pair of ducks flew in. The red-winged blackbird arrived and scouted the pond for nesting sites. A small sparrow with a white throat arrived and sang, "Oh, sweet Canada, Canada, Canada." And if you had been sitting by the pond on that first warm day of spring, suddenly toward the end of the afternoon, you would have heard a stirring sound high above you in the air. A sound like the sound of trumpets. How am I going to pronounce this? Hoo-hoo! Hoo-hoo! And if you had looked up, you would have seen, flying high overhead, two great white birds. They flew swiftly, their legs stretched out straight behind them, their long white necks stretched out ahead, their powerful wings beating steady and strong. Hoo-hoo! 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 A thrilling noise in the sky, the trumpeting of swans. When the birds spotted the pond, they began circling, looking for a place from the air. Then they glided down and came to rest in the water, folding their long wings neatly along their sides and turning their heads this way and that to study their new surroundings. They were trumpeter swans. They were pure white birds with black bills. They had liked the looks of the swampy pond and had decided to make it their home for a while and raise a family. The two swans were tired from the long flight. They were glad to be down out of the sky. They had paddled slowly about and then began feeding, thrusting their necks into the shallow water and pulling roots and plants up from the bottom. Everything about the swans was white, except their bills and their feet. These were black. They carried their heads high. The pond seemed a different place because of their arrival, because they're kind of regal, you know. For the next few days, the swans rested. When they were hungry, they ate. When they were thirsty, which was a great deal at the time, they drank. On the 10th day, the female began looking around to find a place to build her nest. And in the spring of the year, nest building is uppermost in the bird's mind. It is the most important thing. If she picks a good place, she stands a good chance of hatching her eggs and rearing her young. Rearing is like raising. So if she picks a poor place, though, she may fail to raise a family. Like maybe a fox or someone might come and steal one of her eggs, or it might be too cold or get hot too early. So the female swan knew that she had to pick a good place, and that she knew that decision was very important. The two swans first investigated the upper end of the pond, where a stream flowed in. It was pleasant there, with reeds and bulrushes. Red-winged blackbirds were busy nesting in this part of the pond, and a pair of mallard ducks were courting. Courting is like dating. A pair of the ducks are, want to go out to the pond with me? Okay, baby. Then the swans swam to the lower end of the pond. A marsh with woods was on one side and a deer meadow on the other. It was kind of lonely there. From one shore, a point of land extended out into the pond. It was a sandy strip, a little like a peninsula. A peninsula is like Baja California. It's where kind of a thin piece of land that goes down in, the water and sticks down. And at the tip of it, a few feet out into the water, was a tiny island, hardly bigger than a dining room table. One small tree grew on the island, and there were rocks and ferns and grasses. "Take a look at this," said the female swan, as she swam around and around. "Hoo-hoo," replied her husband. He liked to have someone take his advice. The swan stepped cautiously out onto the island. The spot seemed made to order, just right for a nesting place. While the male swan floated close by, watching, she snooped about until she found a pleasant spot on the ground. She sat down to see how it felt to be sitting there. She decided it was the right size for her body. It was nicely located, a couple of feet from the water's edge, very convenient. She turned to her husband. "What do you think?" she said. "An ideal location," he replied. "A perfect place. And I will tell you why it's a perfect place." He said, "If an enemy or a fox or a coon, a raccoon, a short for, or a coyote or a skunk wanted to reach this spot with evil in his heart to find our eggs or something, he'd have to enter the water and get wet. And before he could enter the water, he'd have to walk a whole long way on that point of land. And by that time, we'd see him or hear him. And I would give him a hard time." There you go. The male stretched out his great wings 8 feet from tip to tip. So Matt Nera is probably about 6 feet tall. So if Matt stood up and pointed his arms up to the sky, that's about how far it was from one tip to the other of the wings. It's a pretty big bird. Let's see. And he gave the water a mighty clout to show his strength. This made him feel bigger right away. When a trumpeter swan hits an enemy with his wing, it is like being hit by a baseball bat. Ouch. A male swan, by the way, is called a cob. I didn't know. No one knows why, but that's what he's called. A good many animals have special names. A male goose is called a gander. Remember we heard that in the Charlotte's Web story. A male cow is called a bull. And a male sheep is called a ram. And a male chicken is called a rooster, and so on. Did you ever think of that? A lot of birds. So like the duck, the male is a mallard, but the female is just a duck. And the female swan is just a swan, but the male is a cob. And a chicken is a chicken if it's a female, but if it's a rooster, if it's a boy, it's a rooster. So I guess that's because they think they're important. And anyway, the thing to remember is that a male swan is called a cob. The cob's wife pretended not to notice that her husband was showing off. But she saw it all right. And she was kind of proud of him. He's strong and he's courageous. As husbands go, he was a good one. The cob watched his beautiful wife sitting there on the tiny island. To his great joy, he saw her begin to turn slowly round and around, keeping always in the same spot, treading the mud and grass. So she's just kind of going back and forth there. She was making the first notions of nesting. First she squatted down in the place she had chosen. Then she twisted around and around, tamping the earth with her broad webbed feet, hollowing it out to like a saucer, which is, like a little dish. And then she reached out and pulled twigs and grasses toward her and dropped them at her sides and under her tail, shaping the nest to her body. The cob floated close to his mate. He studied every move she made. Now, another medium-sized stick, my love, said, and she poked her splendid, long, white, graceful neck as far as it would go, picked up a stick, and placed it at her side. Now, another bit of coarse grass, said the cob with great dignity. I think she's going to get tired of him. The female reached for grasses, for moss, for more twigs, anything that was handy. Slowly, carefully, she built up the nest until she was sitting on a big grassy mound. That's a nest, a little mound. She worked at the task for a couple of hours, then knocked off for the day and slid into the pond again to take a drink and have lunch. A fine start, said the cob, as he gazed back at the nest. A perfect beginning. I don't know how you manage it so well. Well, it comes naturally, replied the wife. There's a lot of work to it, but on the whole, it's pleasant work. You know, if you have your house and you like go in the front room and you straighten it up and you put the pictures in a nice place and stuff, that might be work, but it's kind of fun, right? To make your little place look better. Yes, said the cob, and when you're done, you have something to show for your trouble. You have a swan's nest, 6 feet across. What other bird can say that? Because, you know, have you ever seen a bird's nest? There's some out here in front of the Elwood, I know. And they're about this big. So they're saying that the swan's nest is about as big as Matt Neighbor is tall. That would be big. Yeah, that would be big. Well, said his wife, maybe an eagle can say that. They probably make a big nest. He said, yes, but in that case, it would not be a swan's nest. It would be an eagle's nest. It would be high up in some old dead tree somewhere, instead of right down near the water, with all the conveniences that go with water. True. They both laughed at the idea. Then they began trumpeting and splashing and scooping up water and throwing it on their backs, darting about as though they had suddenly gone crazy with delight. Hoo-hoo! 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 They cried. I can do 2 of them, but 3 is difficult. Every wild creature within 1.5 miles of the pond heard the trumpeting of the swans. The fox heard, the raccoon heard, the skunk heard. One pair of ears heard that did not belong to a wild creature, but the swans did not know that. Now, whose ears do you think those were that didn't belong to a wild creature? I think they were Sam's. He was watching the swans. He was very excited to see their nest. So, maybe not, I don't know. So, let's see. We can do chapter 3, I think, is called A Visitor. One day, almost a week later, the swan slipped quietly into her nest and laid an egg. Whee! Each dry day, she tried to deposit 1 egg in the nest. Sometimes she succeeded, and then sometimes she didn't. There were now 3 eggs, and she was ready to lay a 4th. As she sat there with her husband, the cob, floating gracefully nearby, she had a strange feeling that she was being watched, and it made her uneasy. Birds don't like to be stared at. They particularly dislike it being stared at when they're on a nest. A nest is a kind of a private spot for a bird, you know. So the swan twisted and turned and peered everywhere. She gazed intently at the point of the land that jutted out into the pond near the nest. With her sharp eyes, she searched the nearby shore for signs of an intruder. What she finally saw gave her the surprise of her life. There, seated on a log on the point of land, was a small boy. He was being very quiet, and he didn't have a gun. Because, you know, they might shoot at ducks or something, but people don't usually shoot at swans. Do you see what I see? She whispered to her husband. No. What? Over there on that log. It's a boy. Now what are we going to do? Well, how did a boy get here, said the cob. We are deep in the wilds of Canada. There are no human beings for miles around. Well, that's what I thought too, she said. But if that isn't a boy over there on that log, my name is Insignis Buccinator. That's her name. The cob was furious. I didn't fly all the way north into Canada to get involved with a boy, he said. We came here to this beautiful, idyllic spot, remote little hideaway so we could have some well-deserved privacy. So here they are, way over here on their little island, and then over on the edge of the pond is the boy sitting there. You know, and he doesn't want to hurt them, but they don't know that, so that's fine. Said, well, said his wife, I'm sorry to see the boy too, but I must say he is behaving himself. He sees us, but he's not throwing stones. Ugh, who would do that? He's not throwing sticks. He's not messing around. He's simply observing. I do not wish to be observed, complained the cob. I did not travel all this immense distance into the heart of Canada to be observed. Furthermore, I don't want you to be observed. You, except by me, you're laying an egg. I hope you are. And you are entitled to privacy. It has been my experience that all boys throw sticks and stones. It's in their nature. I'm going over and strike that boy with my powerful wing, and he'll think he has been hit by a billy club. I'll knock him cold. No, just wait a minute, said the swan. There's no use in starting a fight. This boy is not bothering me at the moment. He's not bothering you either. But how did he get here? Said the cob, who was no longer talking in a whisper but was beginning to shout. How did he get here? Boys can't fly, and there are no roads in this part of Canada. We're 50 miles from the nearest highway. Because remember, they flew in. Maybe he's lost, said the swan. Maybe he's starving to death. Maybe he wants to rob the nest and eat the eggs, but I doubt it. He doesn't look hungry. Anyway, I have started this nest, and I have 3 beautiful eggs, and the boy is behaving himself at the moment, and I intend to go right on ahead and try for a 4th egg. Good luck, my love, said the cob. I shall be here at your side to defend you if anything happens. Lay the egg. For the next hour, the cob paddled slowly around and around the tiny island, keeping watch. His wife remained quietly on the nest. Sam sat on his log, hardly moving a muscle. Now that's pretty good for a boy. He was spellbound at the sight of the swans. They are so beautiful. They were the biggest water birds he had ever seen. He had heard their trumpeting and had searched the woods and swamps until he found the pond and located the nest. So he heard the coo-coo, and he went looking for them. Sam knew enough about birds to know that these were trumpeter swans. Sam always felt happy when he was in a wild place among wild creatures. Sitting on his log watching the swans, he had the same good feeling that some people get when they're sitting in church. So he's just feeling very calm. After he had watched for an hour, which again, that's a long time to just sit there and do nothing, Sam got up. He walked slowly and quietly away, putting one foot straight ahead of the other, Native American fashion, hardly making a sound. The swans watched him go. When the female left the nest, she turned and looked back. There, lying safely in the soft feathers at the bottom of the nest, was the 4th egg. The cob waddled out onto this island and looked at the nest. A masterpiece, he said. An egg of supreme beauty and perfection. I would say that egg is almost 5 inches in length. His wife was pleased. So that's maybe about as wide as the book. That's a pretty big egg. We're not going to eat an egg that big, right? Okay. Oh, wow. When the swan had laid 5 eggs, she felt satisfied. She gazed on them proudly. Then she settled herself on the nest to keep her eggs warm. Excuse me. Oh, pardon me. Carefully, she reached down with her bill and poked at each egg until it was just the right spot to receive the heat from her body. The cob cruised around close by to keep her company and protect her from enemies. He knew that a fox prowled somewhere in the woods. He had heard him barking on nights when the hunting was good. Days passed, And still the swan sat quietly on the 5 eggs. Nights passed. She sat and sat, giving her warmth to the eggs. If you ever notice a bird's nest, the mother bird does spend most of the time there trying to keep the eggs warm. Chickens too. And then usually the father bird might bring her some food and stuff so she doesn't have to leave them and they'll get all cold. But no one disturbed her, and the boy was gone. Perhaps he would never come back. Inside of each egg, something was happening that she couldn't see. A little swan was taking shape. Excuse me. As the weeks went by, the days grew longer, the nights grew shorter. When a rainy day came, the swan just sat still and let it rain. Because if she got up, the eggs would get cold. They need to be warm to grow. My dear, said her husband, the cob, one afternoon, do you never find your duties onerous or irksome? So isn't it annoying they have to stay there all the time? Do you never tire of sitting in one place and in one position, covering the eggs with no diversions? Nobody's, what's a diversion? No one is distracting her. No fun, no adventures or anything you could like get in trouble, to have a good time. Do you never get bored like, sitting there on the eggs? Nope, she said, not really. Isn't it uncomfortable to sit on eggs all the time? Well, yes, it is, but I can put up with a certain amount of discomfort for the sake of bringing young swans into the world. Because, you know, like a lot of times when women are pregnant and they're really big, they are very uncomfortable. But they know they're going to get a beautiful baby, so it's worth it. Says, do you know how many more days you must sit there? He said. I haven't any idea, but I noticed that the ducks at the other end of the pond have hatched their young ones. Now, of course, those are smaller. I noticed that the red-winged blackbirds have hatched theirs. They're even smaller. And the other evening, I saw a striped skunk hunting along the shore, and she had 4 little skunks with her. So I think I must be getting near the end of my time. With any luck, we will soon be able to see our children, our beautiful little cygnets. So that will be cool, because it's springtime, and that's when animals have babies. Don't you ever feel the pangs of hunger or suffer the torture of thirst? Asked the cob. Yes, I do. As a matter of fact, I could use a drink right now. The afternoon was warm. The sun was bright. The swan decided she could safely leave her eggs for a few minutes and that they'd still be warm enough. She stood up. First, she pushed some loose feathers around the eggs, hiding them from view and giving them a warm covering in her absence. Then she stepped off the nest and entered the water. She took several quick drinks. Then she glided over to a shallow place, thrust her head underwater, and pulled up tender greens from the bottom. Yum. She next took a bath by tossing water all over herself. Then she waddled out onto the grassy bank and stood there, showing off her feathers that are now all clean and everything. The swan felt good. She had no idea that an enemy was near. She failed to notice the red fox as he watched her from his hiding place behind a clump of bushes. The fox had been attracted to the pond by the sound of splashing water. He hoped he would find a goose. Now he sniffed the air and smelled the swan. Her back was turned, so he began creeping slowly toward her. She would be too big for him to carry, but he decided he might get her anyway and see what she tasted like. The cob, her husband, was still floating on the pond. He spied the fox first. Look out, he trumpeted. Look out for the fox who is creeping toward you even as I speak. His eyes bright, his bushy tail out straight, his mind lusting for blood. His belly is almost touching the ground. You are in grave danger, and we must act immediately. While the cob was making this elegant speech of warning, something happened that surprised everybody. Just as the fox was about to spring under the swan, a stick came hurtling through the air. It struck the fox full on the nose. Boink! And he turned and ran away. Well, I bet he was scared. The two swans couldn't imagine what happened. Then they noticed a movement in the bushes. Out stepped Sam Beaver, the boy who had visited them a month ago. Sam was grinning. In his hand, he held another stick in case the fox should try to return. But the fox was in no mood to return. He had a very sore nose, and he lost his appetite for Swan. And here he is, he's holding his nose, ouch, because the stick can come flying towards it. Oh, wasn't that nice? The boy saved them. Hello, said Sam in a low voice. Coo-hoo, coo-hoo, replied the cock. Coo-hoo, said his wife. The pond rang with the trumpet sounds, sounds of triumph over the fox, sounds of victory and gladness. Sam was thrilled at the noise of the swans, which some people say is like the sound of a French horn. He walked slowly around the shore to the little point of land near the island and sat down on his log. The swans now realized beyond any doubt that the boy was their friend. He had saved the swan's life. He had been in the right place at the right time and with the right ammunition. The swans felt grateful. The cob even swam over toward Sam, got out of the pond, and stood close to him, looking at him in a friendly way, like arching his neck up. Hello. And he cautiously, he almost touched the boy. Sam never knew to muscle. His heart thumped from excitement and joy. Now, see, when you're around wild animals, they're usually scared of you and they're not going to come up. But if they do come near you, it's good to hold still, because if the swan comes over by you, go, oh, Swan! Oh, he's out of there. You have to be very still and quiet if you'd like them to stay. But most of us just get all excited and blow it. So that's all we can do. So let's see. I already read that part. Sorry. He had saved the swan's life. He had been in the right place at the right time. He was excited. The female paddled back to her nest and returned to the job of warming the eggs. She felt lucky to be alive. Honestly, I thought the fox was going to go for an egg, so I'm good to you. That night, before Sam crawled into his bunk at camp, he got out his notebook and found a pencil. And this is what he wrote. I don't know of anything in the entire world more wonderful to look at than a nest with eggs in it. An egg, because it contains life, is the most perfect thing there is. It is beautiful and mysterious. An egg is a far finer thing than a tennis ball or a cake of soap. A tennis ball will always just be a tennis ball. And a cake of soap will always just be a cake of soap until it gets so small that nobody wants it and throws it away. But an egg will someday be a living creature. And a swan's egg will open and out will come a little swan. A nest is almost as wonderful and mysterious as an egg. How does a bird know how to make a nest? Nobody ever taught her. How does a bird know how to make a nest? And that was the question he had to go to sleep to. Sam closed his notebook, said goodnight to his father, blew out his lamp, and climbed into his bunk. He lay there wondering how a bird knows how to build a nest. Pretty soon his eyes closed and he was asleep. So next time we'll read chapter 4, titled The Cygnets, and there's a picture of the swan on her eggs there. But apparently, since the chapter is called The Cygnets, they're about to hatch. And then she'll have little baby swans. So we'll get into chapter 4 next time. And I hope, what do you think of the book so far? It's kind of wordy, but it sounds fun. To me, it's like when they're talking about the boy in the woods and everything, I kind of feel like I'm there. They give us all the details. And it sounds like he's really excited. And I think he's going to be really excited to see those little baby swans too, don't you? So, little baby swans next time?
Yeah.
So thank you guys for listening. I appreciate your patience. And I hope that you have a great today. And we'll be, well, I don't know if I'll be back, but we'll be back with the live stream on Thursday. And if we have time, we'll read. I just don't know for sure what Vanessa and Carmen have planned for you. So thank you very
All right,
much.
Thank you.
And remember, Elwyn is still hiring. If you have some friends out there that would like to have a nice job working with nice people like we have here, bring them. Thank you.
All right, thank you, guys.
Grace, look at this.